Welcome to Oblivion 9.
Too often, the UFO phenomenon is dismissed for its supposed exclusive reliance on eyewitness testimony. However, there are numerous examples of UFO encounters that have left tangible traces of their presence in the physical environment or on the witnesses themselves. The so-called Cash-Landrum case of 1980 is a notable example of the latter, having left all three of its witnesses with symptoms of severe radiation poisoning following a late-night encounter with an unidentified flying object. It is one case, at least, that cannot possibly be dismissed as a fabrication, a misidentification, or a hallucination, and one that points to a possible connection between the UFO phenomenon and the US government. On December 29, 1980, 52-year-old Betty Cash was driving down a rural road from New Caney to Huffman, Texas, with her neighbor, Vicki Landrum, 57, and Vicki's grandson, Colby, age 7. Between 9 and 9:15 p.m., following a compulsion to look out into the night sky, Colby noticed a light over the road ahead. After driving closer, the car's occupants noticed the presence of a brilliantly lit, vertically elongated object floating an estimated 60 to 80 feet above the center of the road, roughly at treetop level. They compared its size to that of a water tower, a common sight in rural Texas. The closer they got to the object, the more radiant heat they felt coming from its direction. Betty drove the car within 130 feet, then slammed on the brakes. The car was so hot by this point that Vicki's hands sank into the melting dashboard as she braced herself for the sudden stop. Betty got out of the car and stood in awe before the brilliant object ahead of her. Vicki, who believed that the blinding light was a sign of the return of Christ, stood behind an open door on the right side of the car, then climbed back into the vehicle at the assistance of a panicked Colby. None of the three witnesses were able to determine the shape or structure of the object due to the brilliance of the light it emitted, though they thought it might have had 4 points like a diamond. The object made a strong roaring noise that the witnesses compared to the passing of a freight train. They could also hear a deafening, shrill beeping noise. Incredibly, the object was shooting flames from its underside, and bobbing up and down in the sky every time it fired a burst. After watching the object for 5 to 7 minutes, Betty turned to get back in the car, and was surprised to discover that the door handle was too hot to touch with anything but her jacket. The UFO then flew towards the west, casting its brilliant light higher into the atmosphere and exposing the arrival of 23 tandem rotor helicopters that surrounded the object and appeared to escort it away. Witness descriptions of the helicopters matched the appearance of a U.S. Army CH-47 carrier. As the group continued to drive to Huffman, they watched the object and surrounding helicopters fly away for another 5 to 10 minutes. Mystified by what they just witnessed, the group continued their drive. Betty dropped off the Landrums and arrived back home just before 10 p.m. Within half an hour, her skin turned bright red and her eyes began burning and tearing up. Large blisters appeared over her face and skin. By morning, she was unable to eat anything without vomiting it up, and she was too sick even to leave her bed. She experienced severe headaches and diarrhea. By morning, her hair began falling out in patches. Her lips had swollen to 3 times their natural size, and her eyes were so swollen that they blocked her vision. The clock and radio in her car also failed to work following the incident. Vicki experienced nearly all of the same effects, albeit to a lesser degree, including 50% hair loss only on the side of her head that had faced the UFO. Colby had burns and blisters on his face, and severe diarrhea like the others. He had nightmares for weeks, and was unable to sleep alone for months. Vicki eventually talked Betty into going to a hospital in Houston, but all tests of her vital systems showed no indication of bodily malaise. She was sent home after 12 days in hospital with the expectation that she'd recover on her own, but it would be many weeks before all the symptoms would diminish. She later returned to the hospital for another 15 days. Only then did she tell her doctor about her strange encounter with the UFO. In the following months, a few corroborating witnesses stepped forward. Some of them also heard the helicopters, and at least one had seen them. However, all military personnel that were contacted about the incident denied any knowledge of activity in the area, and noted it would be extremely unlikely for so many helicopters to have flown inland, especially at that time of year. Vicki phoned the National UFO Reporting Center in Seattle to leave a witness deposition, and they, in turn, contacted the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization to send an investigator. A number of other UFO investigators also followed up on the case, including John Schuessler, founder of Visit, Dr. Leo Sprinkle of the University of Wyoming, and Alan Hendry, the lead investigator for J. Allen Hynek's independent research group, the Center for UFO Studies. After interviewing the witnesses and verifying their account of events, all three investigators endorsed the case as a genuine encounter with a UFO. On the advice of their senators, Betty and Vicky pursued legal action against the Air Force, eventually seeking $20 million in financial compensation. However, after several years of court appearances and legal battles, a district court judge dismissed the case for lack of evidence linking the UFO to the government or armed forces. The three witnesses never learned the identity or purpose of the strange craft. For the involvement of severe physiological reactions in the witnesses, the Cash-Landrum case is, at least on some level, impossible to deny. The three travelers saw something real that night, and it's hard to imagine anything natural that could account for the effects they experienced. Betty and Vicky stood by their account of events through several TV appearances and interviews in the years after the incident. Their case was profiled in the 1983 documentary The UFO Experience, and Vicky even volunteered to undergo hypnosis before a live TV audience. After 18 years of unrelenting health complications and endless medical bills, Betty passed away at the age of 71. Vicky died nearly a decade later, leaving Colby as the sole surviving witness. He is left with the undeniable memory of having encountered something unusual that night, without knowing if it was the product of a secret military project or some other source altogether.
Oh my God. This is taken from from Avebury. There's 3 lights now. My God, there's going to be a crop circle there tomorrow morning. Oh, wow. Oh, there's another one. Oh my God. Oh my God. Come here. Oh, 4. Come here. Oh my God. Here's another one. I can't believe this. Oh my God. Oh. Oh my God. Thanks, guys.
Hello, July 27, 2010. A new crop circle is discovered, and I'm here about 12 hours after it was discovered. It's about 8 p.m. right now. It was announced this morning. It's really intricately laid, very beautiful work. It's really big, and the work is really good. And there's a lot of things like this that it's really intricate. And there's something like this. It's big. It's big. There's crops going this way, crops going this way, and crops going this way. Interestingly, these circles that goes all the way like this has this opening here that has a line that goes underneath the whole lake. It goes, see, it's still going underneath. You see, under the top layer, there's another layer that is going straight through. Another circle here, another circle. It goes straight through underneath all this mess. I mean, the stuff that is on top. There's a layer that's going straight through the center of each of the ring. Underneath, keep going. This, it's wrapped up. So this line that is underneath, see, continues straight through to another circle. It's really intricate. There's a one here that has been wrapped up tightly, and then there's a bunch that goes up like this. This is the center part, middle. Some friends here. Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. You're off. Nice meeting you. Hey, that's really great. Blessings. This is a wonderful world. Fancy meeting you here. Look at this one. In the middle part, tied up. Donk. It's right in the middle. Then go over here. There's a clump here. It's tied together. 3 bunches tied together. And over here is another clump that goes like this. And here tied up a little knobby here, and this one is in the middle. In the middle there is this one and this one. And there are little clumps in between. So this is another center part.
Yes.
Yep, it's the same thing again.
Yes.
Look it up there in the viewfinder.
Can you see if you just look at it, that it's got like little spines coming out?
Yeah.
Yes, that's the same thing, exactly the same.
Okay, well I'm going to get straight onto Facebook now and shout Pat and tell him.
.39 on the zoom. .46 on the zoom. .41 p.m. March 4th, 2017. Lynchburg, Virginia. There's two over my house, one to the west.
Wednesday, March 6th, 2 p.m. Mountain Time, 2019. Guys, this next video comes out of Staten Island, New York. Staten Island is situated right there, circled in red, very densely populated area near Lower Manhattan. I received a video earlier this week from a young lady by the name of Jackie, who noticed something in the sky. She sent me a 12-second video clip that I'm going to share with you guys right here. This is the original, and then we're going to take a look at an enhanced version of the original. I didn't change anything about the original except the color and lighting to try to pull forward this object she saw in the sky earlier in the week from Staten Island. So here's the original, and I've done nothing to this. This is how she sent it to me. You're going to see some orbs that appear in this video. Those are on the windshield, as this was taken from inside of a moving vehicle. You don't really see too much, right? There's something right back here that she noticed, and she got her camera out and started recording. So now I'm going to share with you the enhanced version of the same video. And there's an enormous diamond-shaped craft in the sky. That's what she was recording. So here's the original, this is one of the original photos that she shared with me. That's what caught her attention right there. So all I do is run this through some different filters, adjust the color and lighting to try to pull that object forward. And you'll get a good look at it here in just a minute. You're starting to see it now, right? Diamond-shaped object. Look at that. Let's stop it right there. These things are orbs on the window. There's the symmetrical diamond-shaped object. You're going to see here in just a few minutes, whenever I darken the object, some cloud vapors actually in front of it. In fact, right there. See those cloud vapors? That tells us that this object, whatever it is up behind the clouds.
Right, my name is Alan Godfrey. I'm a retired police officer. I was served in the West Yorkshire Metropolitan Police here in England from 1975 to 1984, when in 1984 I had to retire through an injury on duty. Well, the close encounter took place on the 28th of November of 1980. Myself and fellow officers, 6 in total, witnessed a UFO. 3 of the officers worked in Halifax in West Yorkshire. 2 of the officers was in a town called Littleborough, which is in Greater Manchester, and myself was in a town called Todmorden, again in West Yorkshire. The incidents took place at approximately between 5 AM and 5:15 AM on that morning. The 3 police officers in Halifax, who were called PC Howard Turnpenny, PC's John Porter, and policewoman Julie Baxter. John Porter was the dog handler, and they had gone up onto the moors above Halifax to search for some stolen motorcycles. Whilst they're up there on the moors, a front had come in, a weather front had come in, so the very low thick cloud, when they became aware below the cloud level was a large blue pulsating ball. It was doing movements, strange movements, not one would expect from a helicopter or an aeroplane of that description. So much so, the movements became so erratic that the police lady, Julie Baxter, got very distressed and got back into the police car. The dog handler, John Porter's dog, started barking loudly at this object, and there was something he sensed, perhaps. The object then came down and what we call buzzed, swooped down and above, and then headed off towards Todmorden. About 5 minutes later, 2 police officers, the names I have not got with me today, and I can't remember, they were in a different police force than ourselves, were sat up Blackshaw Head, which is a moorland road, in a public house car park called the White House, sat there observing below them the town of Littleborough and Rochdale. When they became aware, they didn't see it actually appear. They saw it disappear, but they didn't actually became aware of it until it was actually there. They saw an object hovering between 2 pylons, so much so they were both mesmerised by it. They reported this incident to their control room, and one of them did a sketch drawing of what they were witnessing. It was only there for several minutes when it shot off, again in the direction of Todmorden. At approximately 5 minutes later, which would be 5:10 a.m, I myself was in a police patrol car heading towards Burnley, a town called Burnley, on the A646. I looked up the main road which I was travelling on, and I saw about approximately 150 yards up in front of it an object. My first reaction was that it was a double-decker bus, but it was a split reaction. Nevertheless, I headed towards this object, and as I got close to it, I got within about 25 yards of the object, and what I saw quite baffled me at first. I thought one of these hot air balloons had come down. Then I thought, 5:10 in the morning, you know. And I realised that this object was actually hovering off the ground. It wasn't. I could see under, as I'm sat in the police car, I could actually see under the object. And it was hovering about 5 feet off the ground. The span of it was taking much of the road up, so it was about 20 feet wide, because the road's pretty narrow just there. And over the top I could see the road lamps. So I'm estimating the height of the object was about 14 feet. And I'm sat about 25 yards looking at it. I put the blue lights on, headlights, hazard lights, anything you can think of, because this was totally blocking the road. It was diamond in shape. It appeared to be in 2 halves joined together. The bottom half appeared to be rotating. The top half looked like it was stationary, and it also, I thought it had dark windows, panels, windows that went all the way around. That was my impression, but it could have been just dark panelling. But the first impression I had, there was like a limo has darkened windows. That's the impression I got, but it could have been panelling. I was absolutely gobsmacked. What really was worrying, well, not worrying, it's a strange saying worrying, but the bushes and the trees that line the road on this side, on the right-hand side, were shaking very, very violently, as though there was a strong wind blowing, but my car was perfectly stationary. I didn't feel any vibrations in the car. I didn't hear any noise. It wasn't emitting any noise that I could hear. I'm watching the object. I tried the UHF personal radio that all police officers carry on them. Well, they do in England. And I tried the car radio, which is on VHF. VHF is a video in VHF. And none of the frequencies I could get through to our control room. And when I was deciding what to do about it, I thought I'll pick me, we carry a pad, a clipboard with all this documents, you know, to issue tickets and all this sort of stuff. And I decided to draw it. While I remember starting to draw it, I can't remember ever finishing the drawing, because at that time there was a large, bright, terribly bright, as though 1,000 photographers had all taken a photograph at the same time, and it was just pure brilliance. And you know that thing you get when you had your photograph taken, you get that blackness. Well, when that blackness had gone, which only a matter of seconds, I was about 40, 50 yards further up the road, actually driving the police car. And if my memory serves me right, the blue light wasn't flashing, the hazard lights weren't flashing, and I didn't have my headlights on, although I was on dipped. I turned the car around, I went back to where this object had been, because it had gone. And on the floor of the road surface, and it had been raining all night. I mentioned the weather front earlier on, but it had stopped perhaps an hour earlier. But the road surface was wet through, but not where this object had been. There was a whirlpool dry surface. There was branches, and when I say branches, I don't mean massive branches. I'm talking, you know, twig type, between a twig and a branch. What I did find interesting about, well, it wasn't interesting, but what I did realise, when this flash had happened, I've timed it, or we timed it, that I'd left the police station at 5 AM. We're all agreed on that. I took a colleague down to the town centre, which is again is about 400 or 500 yards that way from the police station. I dropped him off. I had a very low conversation with him about he was going to check the shops in the town centre, and then turned the car around, drove back past the police station. Another 500 yards up the road, I come across this object. Perhaps there maybe minute. I mean, a minute is a long time when you don't know what's going to happen to you, believe you me. So maybe 2 minutes, but we'll stretch it to 5, shall we? So now we're about 5:10 There's a flash. I've turned the car around. I've had a quick look. Maybe another 5 minutes. Gone home But when I went to the police station, it was 10 to 6. That's why my colleague, who had only just dropped off, had done his patrol and was heading back because we all finished at 6 o'clock, and he was heading back to the police station when I called him. There was definitely a large chunk of my life missing, you know.
Do you recall anything from that interval?
No, it was 20 years ago. Even then didn't even think about a UFO extraterrestrial, anything like that. It was just what I was more concerned with, and believe this or not, that thing was blocking the road. It wasn't what it was, or where it had come from. The fact that it was blocking the road. That was my chief concern. I know it sounds silly now, but that's how I took the actual sighting. I didn't go, wow, this is a flying saucer, or wow, this is from somewhere from Star Trek or something. No, what the hell's this doing blocking the road? That was more important, because it's total nothing like an aircraft. You see, aircraft fly, don't they? Unless you're a jump jet. Now, this thing was actually hovering, and it was moving. And I suppose it comes in the classic UFO, unidentified flying object status, you know. But as time went on, and I became aware of the other police officers' sightings, it was a great relief to me. You can't imagine what a great relief that was to me, because you can understand being a policeman and my colleagues' reactions within that small community that we have. But when I found out about the 3 police officers in Halifax, and then months and months later about the 2 police officers in Greater Manchester. What a relief. I'm not crazy. I did see it. I told you I'd seen this. You know, you said I hadn't seen it. I'd imagined it, but I told you I'd seen something. And then there was 2 witnesses, civilian witnesses. There was a gentleman, he was a caretaker at the time, and he was the caretaker of a local high school. Well, it was a grammar school in those days. And he was walking across the schoolyard, which is on a hill, the road's down here. He saw an object come up, go to that side of the valley, move to that side of the valley, and did that all up the valley heading towards Burnley, which is the direction I was travelling. There was a format, believe this or believe it not, and I didn't know this, there was a format actually in our police station how to report a UFO sighting to the Ministry of Defence. And you send it on teleprinters as we had in those days. So my report, together with the 3 police officers in Halifax, because we're the same division, same police force, our reports went to the Ministry of Defence within 24 hours. Certainly 48 hours, but certainly when I came on duty that night I had to do a statement. I presume the other police officers did theirs at the same time. I know they did do them because I spoke to them, but, and I will say that certainly within 24, 48 hours the Ministry of Defence in London received that report. And I do know that nearly 15, 18 years after the event they deny ever receiving that report, because a journalist who was writing a book quite rightly wrote to the Ministry of Defence and asked if it would be possible to view the report of these police officers. It's been in the media, so it's not top secret. And the letter came back. He's published that letter in this book. I couldn't turn the name of the book off, Without Consent or something like it's called. And there, lo and behold, is the letter from the Ministry of Defence to this gentleman saying, although they've heard of Alan Godfrey's encounter and the police officer from West Yorkshire, blah, 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 we have no record of it. I was absolutely amazed at what happened after that. My life just turned upside down in an instant. From being a happy-go-lucky chap, within a space of 6 months, I would put through hell and I turned into one of the most horrible persons you could ever imagine you come across, purely through harassment, stress, victimisation, you name it, I had it. It started very subtle, and it was things that more of an irritant than an annoyance, but it built up. And I can tell you, probably the best way of saying is to tell you 4 major things, but for every one major thing there was 20 minor things. I suddenly arrived at my place of work and I was told I was being transferred 20, 30 miles away, 50 miles away, Wakefield. I was settled in my home, I was married, had 3 children, and the middle one had just been in hospital for about 12, 16 weeks with Perth disease of his hip, and he was still in a wheelchair, and he would have been in, he's not now, but he was in a wheelchair at that time. My wife had just had his 3rd child, and I didn't want to go. I mean, there was no need. The second incident, I arrived back off holiday and I found that I had been moved. That's from 9 o'clock that day, not to Wakefield, but to Halifax, which I could get to and still live in the same house, but it was very, very inconvenient. The fact was I hadn't got a car for a start off, and the shift pattern we work in the police will make it totally, virtually impossible to get there for parade duty at 5:45 in the morning. The first bus that left Tomberton wouldn't get you there for 5:45 in the morning, do you follow me? So I had to go, and I went. And instantly arriving at Halifax, I was taken out of the public domain. I was told I wasn't to mix with the public. I was in civvies. My colleagues in uniform. We arrived at Stanley Royd Hospital, and lo and behold, it isn't a general hospital at all, it's a psychiatric hospital. At this time I became very, very concerned. So much so that I said to my colleague, whatever you do, don't leave me here. Don't. If I have to go to be interviewed, you come in with me. And he was absolutely wonderful, because he was fully aware, with being an ex-colleague from the previous police station, what had been going on, all these other things that are too long to tell you about. So anyway, I went into this examination room, consultation room, call it what you like. Two psychiatrists sat in front, and a lady sat over here taking notes. And they started off with the usual about your childhood and things like that. I won't go into all that, it'd take too long, but basically it soon became apparent to myself and my colleague that, well, especially when they came up with, we understand you hallucinate. I said, pardon? We understand that you a lot of hallucinations, and you've been seeing little green men and flying saucers. Well, I just hit the roof, you know. And my colleague just, whoa, 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 he says, whoa, 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 whoa. Let me tell you something. I've seen one, and so have a lot of Alan's colleagues in Tomberton. And he named some, and he just sat there with his jaws down, you know. What? And I said, what's all this about? You know, this has gone on for an hour now. What's all this about? I thought I'd come here for a physical medical examination on this injury. And I told him what the injury was, because it was down in these regions. I said, no, I'm not injured up here. I said, this incident that you happened 2 years ago, nearly. 2 years ago, I told him the story then, very quickly. I said, it happened 2 years ago. I was working yesterday. I've got my own office in the cells. What's all? You're working? I said, of course I'm working. I might be in civ, it's my day off. Well, we was told to check out your psychiatric stability, because they feel that you're not quite, whoa. I said, well, let me tell, I just leant across to that, I said, let me tell you something. When you are going home tonight, and you're in your car, and if you come across an object like I come across, what are you going to do about it then? I suppose you're going to ring the police up. I said, well, I was the policeman, and there's nobody I could back up, and when I wanted to back up, this is what's happening.
Okay, I just wanted to show you something. I borrowed this video showing these two objects flying across the screen as he's filming contrails. Now, I've done this myself, been out filming the chemtrails, and I've seen things. So what you're looking at here, moving at a very, very high rate of speed, are two very small black objects. I'm going to show you my drawings that I've seen of these things up close. Lots of people have seen them. A lot of people, I'm in Nevada, some people all the way in Birmingham have seen these things, England. I assume they only went out at night because they're very, very stealthy. But they move so quick in the daytime, you would never probably notice them. So you can only imagine what these objects can do at night. They're pretty much everywhere. And I suspect they may be body snatchers. I will know within the next couple of weeks for sure what they are. These are not birds. These are moving at an enormous amount of speed. I'm going to show you my drawings next. Showing these two objects flying across the screen as he's filming contrails. Now, I've done this myself, been out filming the chemtrails, and I've seen things. So what you're looking at here, black objects. I'm going to show you my drawings that I've seen of these things up close. Lots of people have seen them. A lot of people, I'm in Nevada, some people all the way in Birmingham have seen these things, England. I assume they only went out at night because they're very, very stealthy. But they move so quick in the daytime, you would never probably notice them. So you can only imagine what these objects can do at night. They're pretty much everywhere.
And she knew I'd been transferred. And she says, Alan, what's all this about? What's that? You know, about you being barred from police station. Pardon? She said, they're talking about it now. You call it. So I called them over, you know, or I wandered over to them. And I knew them because I'd worked with them for years. And I said, whoa, what's happened? They thought I knew. And I said, no, what's that gone on? And he said, well, this afternoon, between the 6-2 shift finishing and the 2-10 shift starting, he got all the officers on parade together, the 2 shifts together. And the order was going to be read out at the night parade as well. And the order was that PC Alan Godfrey had been barred from entering Tomerton Police Station. He's not to be allowed in unless it's on official duty, and when he is in here, he's to be escorted everywhere he goes. And when they was asked why, what for, does he know? Because it could be rather embarrassing for if Alan came in and he doesn't know about it. It'd be embarrassing for him, it'd be embarrassing for us. So why? Because things have been going missing, i.e. stolen. Now, I hadn't been in Tomerton Police Station since being transferred, bar once, when I had to go back on a court case I was involved in. I was livid. So much so, the following day, I demanded to see our divisional head. And I asked him if he knew about it. And he said, not officially, no. Now, this is the head of our division. Hasn't been officially told that I've been barred from a police station, although he had heard it on the golf course the previous day. I said, let me get this straight. Because you can imagine by this time, I got really, really pissed off with what was going on. I said, did you tell me this straight? Are you being serious with me that you, as head of this division, was totally unaware that one of your officers has been barred from one of your police stations by one of your underlings, and you don't know about it, other than you heard it on the golf course yesterday? I said, who runs this division? You? And I mentioned the inspector's name and the sergeant's name, who'd addressed the parade, you know. Straightforward enough question, isn't it? Who runs your division, you or these two? Well, I do. I said, well, but you don't know I've been barred. Well, who's give them authority? And this went on. So I threatened then, solicitor, issue writ. I'm now giving you notice that I'm fighting back, that the worm has turned. I've done everything you've asked me to do. I haven't spoken to the press about the UFOs, you know, the document I had to sign. I haven't spoken about Zygmunt Adamski. I haven't spoken to anybody. And yet you are persistently giving me grief. You've tried to have me certified. Oh, and he's backing back, you know. I said, well, the worm's now turned. Solicitor, later on today, down to Manchester, Queen's Court at Manchester, we'll have you in court. Chief, them two, defamation of character. I'll get the Federation to back us up. But me and the sergeant went down to my locker. And as I put the key in, the lock mechanism at the back dropped on the floor. And when we opened it up, where my hat had been, my flat cap had been, was contraband stuff that shouldn't have been in the police station, never mind in my locker. Now, I can only presume that's what it was because I didn't test it. My first reaction was to get rid of it, which I duly did. Hindsight, did I do right? I don't know, but it was going out of my locker, and it went out my locker and it went down the toilet and down the cells. Shaking, fear, as there isn't a word can describe how I felt. I can believe you me. I sweated, and I told Sergeant, the guy I picked up, "You've got to back me on this, Jim. You've got to back me on this. You looked in my locker at 10 o'clock, there was nothing there." I said, I didn't even know anybody had been asking where it was. He was a bit panicky himself, you know. He said, "This is getting hot. It's getting a bit, woo, you know. You watch your back, Alan, you know." Anyway, we managed to get home. We finished the tour that night. Went home at 6 in the morning. When we came back on the same day, if you like, back on as night duty, I was met as soon as we walked in the police station. Jim was in it. "PC Godfrey, I was called to one side. It was our internal affairs, DI and a DS. "Want to look in your locker?" I said, "What for?" "Never mind what for. I want to look in your locker. We want you present there. You can have another officer present with you if you like." And I said, "You coming with me, Jim?" So we went down there. Of course, the lock was already on the floor. I left that. I just said, "Oh, the lock's broken." Thinking, if there is anything else in there that'd been back, at least the lock's broken, you know. And I acted surprised that the lock was broken, you know. So I kind of just, look lower where the lock thing had been, I just brought it home like that. I said, "How that happened?" And there was nothing there other than my uniform. They hadn't been back. And they was upset. Oh, were they upset? They was absolutely livid. And I said, "What's the matter? You know, what are you looking for? You know, what am I supposed to have in here? You know?" He said, "You know when you were at Tomlin police station that you brought somebody else's helmet home, but you picked somebody else's helmet up instead of yours because yours is at Tomlin, so you must have picked someone else's up. We thought it was in your locker." "Oh yeah." "Oh yeah. It needed internal affairs, did it, to come down with a quick phone call. Alan, can you go and check that you've got the right helmet and you haven't got to use it?"
So the implication here is that they were attempting to frame you.
Well, there's an implication. That's what actually happened.
There's been a marked increase in the number of people who claim to have had contact with alien beings. Some of them tell disturbing stories of abuse and claim to have real physical scars from the close encounters they found terrifying. When it comes to UFO encounters, Hollywood has had a field day. The movies have portrayed aliens as comical spacemen or as benevolent creatures. But the movies we love to laugh at have nothing to do with reality. Reality is a woman named Vicki Landrum.
I'd go to the grocery store and people would make fun of me. I'd try to go to church and the pastor asked me not to come.
Vicki Landrum has struggled to convince the government and the public that contact with extraterrestrials has left her scarred and riddled with disease.
Well, it's not just a light in the sky or somebody thinks they saw something. A real serious case, you know they've seen something. It changes people's lives. They're never the same afterwards if they've had a close encounter or if they've been injured.
Houston, 1980. They were driving on a deserted road. Betty Cash, Vicki Landrum, and her 7-year-old grandson, Colby. They claim to have had a UFO encounter that left more than memories burned in the minds of these 3 victims.
I kept screaming for Betty to get back in the car. So finally she come to get back in the car, and when she caught a hold of that handle, it burned her ring into her finger. That car was that hot.
They all had stomach aches, they all had diarrhea, they all vomited, they were all burned, they all developed sores later. They all lost some hair. Mrs. Cash, most of her hair, Mrs. Landrum less, and the boy even less. But in each case, something happened that is typical of radiation exposure.
My eyes were burned so till they swelled till I couldn't hardly see. I couldn't see how to read or watch TV or do nothing. And Every time I'd get out in the sun, it'd be big blisters, and I had sores all over my arms. After this happened to me, well, I couldn't work. I didn't have no friends to talk to. So it just made me like a hermit.
The Cash-Landrum case, as I call it, to me is a very significant case because we have a situation where we had a very large flying machine that came over the road that actually left marks on the road, so you know where it was exactly. It left burns on the trees. It left burns on the people. It changed their physiology. It's a composite of many UFO cases all rolled into one with very horrifying results.
While campaigning for the presidency in 1976, Jimmy Carter claimed he had seen a UFO. Carter vowed to make all government materials on UFO sightings available to the public. 20 years earlier, Andy Florio, a big band musician, had an encounter with a UFO in Arizona and experienced burns similar to Vicki Landrum's. Now, he wants the government to make good on Jimmy Carter's promise.
Jimmy Carter made a commitment to the American people that he would release all UFO secrecy to the American people if he became president, which he did not do. As a citizen and so forth, and as a victim of a UFO, I'm madder than hell. That's all there is to it. My elbows burned me 37 years, man. It's going to burn me the rest of my life. I know it. It's burning me now.
There are many secrets in this world kept by various governments and various peoples. In this particular case, if someone would just say what happened, whether it was extraterrestrial or it was a military experiment or whatever, we would all rest easier in knowing that it's something that's known.
Although the government claims no responsibility, an Army colonel was sent to investigate Vicki Landrum's claims.
He questioned me, and I answered him, and then he told me that people had died for listening what I was trying to do.
Some investigators suggest that the colonel's subtle threat was linked to helicopters Vicki saw surrounding the UFO.
The helicopters came from different directions. There were groups of them that came in waves. One group came from the southwest, one came in from the east, and they all converged on the same area. Several of the helicopters flew around this object like they were trying to hem it in.
The government wanted to experiment on something, and they taken the lives of people to do it.
Our system is not set up to explain the unexplainable. People all over this country are mysteriously injured, even killed every year. Vicki Landrum believes some of them may have met with deadly alien forces. Because she is seriously ill, Vicki won't be silenced. She speaks out in the hope that others will not suffer her terrible fate.
Love you 9.